Alright, so in the latest chapter of Blue Lock, we got a shocking truth, which was that Buratsuta has the power to pick out 3 players, other than the already 23 players picked out by Ego, and the 3 players he picks will get to join the other 23 in the U-20 World Cup. So in this video, I want to go over which ones I think that he will pick, and also give my reason for them. So starting off, we have like the most obvious ever, as Buratsuta has already confirmed that he will leave one of his spots open for Sai, who said that he will join once Japan is going up against Spain due to the fact that he wants to take revenge on his arch nemesis Bunny. This leaves us with 2 more open spots. Now who will fill them? Well, Buratsuta firstly went to Nagi and asked if he wanted the opportunity to join him. Now, firstly, Nagi was interested. But then, Buratsuta revealed his 3 conditions for people joining his Buratsuta 3. Now that name is just ridiculous, but yeah, let's move on to the conditions. The first one is they must pass the selection tests that he devises. Number 2, if they do pass and become one of his Buratsuta 3, then they must give him control over their future soccer career and contracts. And in short, for the remainder of their life playing soccer, they will be his until the day they die. Lastly, once they return to Blue Lock, they must play soccer solely to prove that Ego is wrong. Anyway, these conditions are, first of all, just stupid. However, after hearing them, Nagi thought that there was no way that he could betray Blue Lock after all the good memories that it has given him, so he told Buratsuta no. Now, is his answer going to stay no? I'm not quite sure, as I just feel like it would be weird to show Nagi this much if he isn't even going to the U-20 World Cup. And not to mention that he has seen how much he has been dreading the days while being left out of Blue Lock. So I think that the pain of being left outside might become too overwhelming, which will make Nagi change his mind and enter. Now firstly, I want to say that if you take a quick look at the first condition, then it says that the players he chooses must pass the selection tests he devises. This means that Buratsuta will probably choose more than just 3 players, and then all of them will do his little test until only 2 pass. Why I say 2 and not 3 is because he told Sei that he didn't have to do his test and that he was accepted either way. This means that it will probably be like the wild card. Now that might be a bad comparison. However, I mean it by the fact that a lot of people will participate, but only 2 will be left standing. Now let's get into the fun part where I try and break down which characters I think fit the role best in being one of the Buratsuta 3, and I have some great candidates. Firstly, Tokimitsu. Now, I wanted to include Tokimitsu because in reality, he is a really good player, not to mention that he came in 25th place behind Nagi, which makes it so that he would be the best candidate after Nagi. The hard thing with Tokimitsu, however, is his personality, and that he will be super hard for Buratsuta to promote and try to gain money off, which we know is his most important goal with all of this. Tokimitsu lacks this entertaining personality, as he is very quiet and scared. Once again, nothing wrong with that. Just not what Buratsuta is looking for. However, as it sounds like it will be a selection with more than 2 players, then I think that Tokimitsu will be playing and trying to win his place, but that he will lose in the end. Next up is one of the players I hate the most, and it's the rat Igarashi. Now my hate for him is a bit over-exaggerated, as I don't have that much on him, but yeah, now Igarashi would be a decent pick I think. He did come absolutely last in the Neo-Egoist League, which is a big setback for him. However, he has a very loud personality, which I think will benefit Buratsuta. I will talk about him a bit more later as I have more candidates. However, I do think that Igarashi still has a good chance, as he is also a bigger character than Tokimitsu, and more people want him back into the story. Now don't click away when I say my next pick, as I just had to include him, and it's none other than Nishioa. Now he actually has some things that Buratsuta could be interested in. Now yeah, some of this might be cope, however his nickname was the Aomori's Messi. Firstly, it must have meant that in the beginning of the series he was a alright player, and also that he was a known player. Now why does Buratsuta want known and popular players? Well, it's more likely that they will earn more money the more popular they are, which is great for Buratsuta, as when he is signing them into the U-20 World Cup, his condition was that he would take care of their contracts and all of that. Which means that the bigger name you are, the more money you get, and in turn the more money Buratsuta get. Also, I'm just praying for any hope that Nishioa might return. A lot of you have asked why I like him so much. Well, honestly, it's mostly just turned into a fun thing. Also, Messi was my favorite player growing up, so with his nickname, I guess that I've gotten really interested on him. Anyway, now lastly I want to talk about another player, which, honestly, it doesn't matter how many of you call it Cope, as he has good reason to be a Buratsuta 3, and that's Kira. Now yes, we haven't seen this boy since the 2nd chapter in the series, which is kind of mad to think about. But still, come on, he was the jewel of Japanese football. He probably was the most famous out of the 300 players, and to think that Buratsuta would just brush over him is wild. But that's far from everything that Kira has, because he also has a massive hate towards a fellow enemy of Buratsuta, which, of course, is ego. We have learned from chapter 308 that Buratsuta absolutely despises ego and that he genuinely hates him, which is why it would be great to take back Kira, who was the first one to question ego's way of thinking and philosophy. It would also be cool, because if Buratsuta picks Kira, then he will be like Kira's coach in a sense. And Ego would be Asagi's coach, obviously. Anyway, this would create this super interesting dynamic between Buratsuta and Ego, who dislike each other, and Kira and Asagi, who dislike each other. Or Asagi doesn't dislike Kira, but Kira hates Asagi. So you get my point. It would create this super cool fight between which ideology is better. Now, the biggest fault for Kira joining is that he got kicked out way back, and if he hasn't done any training, then he won't even be close to the Blue Locker's level of skill. However, with that said, I want to clarify that he had the biggest starting number out of his group, which meant that he was the best player out of Team Z. Also, this could easily be fixed if they just says that Buratsuta knew that he would pick Kira as one of the Buratsuta 3 at the start of the Neo Egoist League. So in the meantime, that the Blue Lockers were in the Neo Egoist League, Kira was set to undergo his own special training, which was instructed by Buratsuta. Now, this obviously won't compare to being trained by the Masters, which are the best players in the world. However, we saw how strong Kunigami became after the wild card, and it's possible that Buratsuta had something like that done for Kira, which at least made him better. If they go with that route, then I feel like it's perfect, as it would give us an explanation to why Kira is so good now, and also why he was picked by Buratsuta. Honestly, I don't know about you, but I feel like Kira is one of the most perfect picks, and that he is just obvious. Now, before, I said that I was going to talk about Igarashi and Tokimitsu more, and I wanted to save it until this point in the story, because I wanted to have talked about all of the candidates first. Now, I do feel like at least Kira is a better choice than Tokimitsu and Igarashi, as I feel like he is a bigger name than both of them, and because of his hate towards Ego and Isagi. Now, the only thing that could be an issue was the difference in strength, but I feel that my theory that I said before makes up for it. So, with that said, I genuinely think that Kira is a better choice than both Tokimitsu and Igarashi, which is why I feel like the Buratsuta 3 will be Sai, Kira, and Nagi. I would prefer if Nagi didn't join and got his evolution later on. However, something just tells me that he will take this golden opportunity. Even though he said what he said in this chapter, I feel like he will go home and think about it before realizing that he has to put himself first and then join Buratsuta. However, I do think that it will have more of a negative side on Nagi's future later on in the story, but it will be a while before that. Now, I don't know if we will get to see the selection or not. I would really like it if we did. However, they might do the same that they did with the wild card and not show it at all, which would be a bit of a letdown in my opinion. Anyway, I think that a bunch of players we have seen before will go into the selection, and then the two who will come out of it will be Nagi and Kira. That's my prediction at least. It might even turn out that someone in the Buratsuta 3 is someone totally random whom we have never seen before. However, I doubt that, as all of the best strikers were all gathered at Blue Lock in the start. Anyway, that's just my prediction for the Buratsuta 3, and I would love to hear which players you think Buratsuta will choose, so please leave it down in the comments. Anyway, if you like Blue Lock and videos like this, then I would highly suggest you subscribe to this channel, and while you are at it, leave a comment and a like, as it helps out with the algorithm a ton. And if you are curious to see another video of mine, then please watch the video that will be popping up on the screen now. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye.